seconds to comply.
I think you'd better do what he says, Mr. Kenny.
You have 60 seconds to comply. This is minute 22. Part man,
part machine,
or pod.
This minute begins with Boudica shooting Murphy's hand off and ends with him smoking. And we are joined by our second guest, Niall Mc Gowan of BatMinute.
Oh, hello. I was slightly confused there. Are you talking about Clarence Boudica smoking or Murphy smoking because he's been shot so many times?
Yeah.
Both. Yeah.
A little from column A, a little from column B. Yeah, you've come on a very interesting minute where there's our main antagonist is essentially being shot to death.
These minutes were so coveted. I had so many people saying, I want the scene where Murphy gets shot or when he gets turned into RoboCop. So we're actually going to have a lot of guests during this period because who wouldn't want to...
We've got a bit of a bracket.
Yes.
I don't know, because this is one of those scenes, though, it's got like... I think if you're of a certain age, like basically my age, this scene is just like everyone's got a collective trauma about this movie because everybody saw it when they were too young. And I remember watching this and being like, "What?" And then friggin' Emil.
That seems to be a theme.
But I think to this day, Emil getting melted is just like I kind of brace myself every time because I know it's coming. It's so it's scared me so much as a kid that because I was watching it far too young.
That's the other commented minute.
Yeah, I was watching when I was 14, and the shooting didn't bother me so much. Oh, it was shocking, but the Emil getting melted, that messed me up. And I wasn't too young to watch it, I don't think.
we did the math. I was like 9, 10 around about the time when I first saw this movie, when it first came out on VHS. So yeah, I've not heard of anyone that's like loves this film. Is like, yeah, I watched this when I was like over 18. Everyone's just like, yeah, I watched this when I was like 10.
Yeah, I think I was actually literally like about 6 years old when I first saw RoboCop. And
well, how's this for a segue then? Why don't you tell us your first experiences with the Robot Cops?
Well, yes, it's the thing. I was born the year this came out, so I just have a vague memory of being in my neighbor's house and RoboCop on video. And I think it was just one of those things because, they had a RoboCop cartoon show and stuff at the time.
Yeah.
Where it was, I think parents were like, oh, yeah, it's for kids, right? And so I remember us watching the movie and me like being freaked out by this scene and then managing to sit through the rest of it and then Emil getting melted and been like, I have to leave. I can't watch this. This is like probably crying when I saw it and stuff. But I had a RoboCop, like for this movie specifically, I had a RoboCop poster in my room when I was a kid. Because I guess my parents were just like, yeah, let's put up a RoboCop poster. That's for kids, right? Used to have a RoboCop 2 T-shirt when I was about like 11, and then I don't think my parents ever verified. Like maybe we should watch this to see if it's appropriate or not. But,
my parents definitely didn't watch this before I saw it.
Well, like so many other ones, like you watch Aliens or Predator or whatnot when you're a kid. And it's like, well, that's not too bad. They're violent, but they're not that bad. But this is like, this is not for children at all. At all.
Yeah, it's interesting that the 80s seemed to be this time where parents just let their kids watch whatever and didn't think about it. Yeah. And then the 90s, or at least in my experience, was this radical shift to where my parents weren't even letting me watch The Simpsons because, I used to watch when I was really little and I was singing Do the Bartman. I think there's still footage of me singing that when I'm like 4. But then I got to a point where I started asking questions about some of the inappropriate jokes and references. And like, Mom, what does this mean? So she'd go, don't want to have to explain that to you, so you're just not going to watch it from now on. And of course, it was so popular at school that I think eventually, and then South Park came out. So eventually, Mom just went, I can watch The Simpsons. I guess it's not that bad. But no, definitely she would have never let me watch Aliens or RoboCop or anything like that.
It's so bizarre though, particularly in this scene, is that I discovered in doing a little bit of research for coming on. You can get the RoboCop animated series on YouTube now. It's just a lot of it's been uploaded.
Both of them.
And I was just weirded out to see that the opening. Because I did see it when I was a kid, but vague memories of it. But weirded out that like, watch the first episode to see what happens there. Then maybe they'll have him becoming RoboCop. Would they put that in the show? And no, it's in the intro of every episode. They show you essentially a version of this scene, but it's like Murphy going through the warehouse and then it's drawn to look like Kurtwood Smith and everyone. It's like coming out from behind some crates. and blowing him away.
Oh damn!
And it's like they don't see the violence of it, but it is implies like, oh, it's the same story. The guy got shot to pieces, and they made him into RoboCop. It's like, I think even that sentence is for kids a bit too much.
But they shot him with flashlights because you couldn't have real guns, but they could have lasers.
Yeah. In the Alpha Commando cartoon, I think it basically takes place after that, but it's set in the future of the future.
Yeah.
So they just skip right over that. They don't even mention how he became RoboCop.
Yeah, the RoboCop timeline kind of gets split after like 3, as like you got the TV series, the cartoons going on, the Prime Directive miniseries. We're getting into deep lore here, but it's just crazy how much span off from RoboCop and how much of it's kind of terrible.
Yeah,
I think we could argue that like anything beyond the main text of RoboCop is just RoboCop the film is it. That's all you ever needed. But for some reason, they keep trying to come back to the well with this thing.
It's like Highlander. There can be only one, and with Highlander, there literally can be only one.
Well, I know you guys. You say you're going to talk about it like next year or whatever. But I did go down a bit of a RoboCop rabbit hole, and I rewatched the second one. I haven't seen in a long time.
Oh yeah,
and let me tell you, that is knowing now. I didn't know when I was a kid, but knowing now that it's written by Frank Miller, it really skews in a different direction.
It's very Frank Miller.
You're just very much like, I don't get the. You could argue this is satire, but I also think, knowing what I know now about Frank Miller, I think he's dead serious about like, yes, we should be.
It's hard to tell with Frank Miller.
Well, it is kind of, in quotation marks, written by Frank Miller. There was a lot of script editing that went on to the point where Frank Miller himself turned his original script into a comic book series, which is like ultra violent and ultra cynical, and it's fucking wild.
I need to read that script.
And honestly, not particularly good, because it's modern day Frank Miller. He can't write.
Yeah, but could be also said of the RoboCop 2 in itself. For me personally, I was just like, it's not a terrible movie, but it is very much like, I don't think you didn't need to make this though. I think like
it's enjoyable, but yeah,
it's just very much like you had a great thing going, and then you just had to keep going with it. It's like, god damn it.
I think RoboCop is a masterpiece, so anything that comes after is just going to be an okay action movie. I don't think you could ever really go back to those heights. I mean, I'm reviewing Blade Runner 2049, which is just the most impossible sequel where you go, it's just as good, maybe better. It brings the same things to the table. It didn't seem possible. So I guess it can happen. But
it also had like, decades worth of distance. So like it helps.
That also helps. Yeah. Well, it didn't help Tron Legacy.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna hop ahead because I know you guys we're going to talk about the remake eventually, but it's like,
yes.
that's like, you didn't even try. You didn't even try to be like,
no.
It's just like, if you're not even.
We have notes.
It's so. Again, I said it in the green room before we came in, but like, I vowed never to watch that remake out of principle, but I did to come on here, and I was upset afterwards. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Yep.
I wish I could have told you beforehand and said, no, don't do it.
Oh no, but I will still be like, do it, do it.
But we'll say though, in talks of like, in terms of RoboCop being like a masterpiece, is like, even what they're doing within the opening seconds of this minute is just like, it's so, in terms of cinematic language, it's setting up so well. The fact that Clarence Boddicker is pointing this gun, he's doing the tracking noise, foreshadowing that Murphy is going to have a tracker in him. Like, to aim things. Then he shoots off the hand that Murphy ends up using to kill Clarence Boddicker later in the movie. And it's like, yep, this is all. We know this man for playing Red Foreman, but how about Red Foreshadowing? More like, he's just like, they're in exactly the same positions. It's just like, it's as if Paul Verhoeven knew what he was doing when he made this movie in some way. But
yeah, it's like when you get a great filmmaker involved in a movie, and he's just going to take this schlocky piece of shit script and turn it into a fucking art.
Yeah.
Love this. I honestly didn't really think about that. That's probably something I would have maybe thought about 70 minutes from now, but at the same time, wow, that is really cool. That is a great piece of work. Thank you for that.
No problem. But
that's why we got the guests on.
But that's why I was so like, even just going into this minute, it's like instantly, it's just like, oh yeah, this is exactly framing up what comes later in the movie. They're just doing, and it's even starting to go, because one of my big things, like I love Clarence Boddicker. I think everybody does, because he's a great villain.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I was even, I did know, because I looked at the script, and even I haven't got a hold of the novelization, but I've looked at reviews of the novelization because I became fascinated by that, and all versions they specifically mentioned that he has glasses. Like this is a big thing. It was like, yeah, Clarence Boddicker is a man with glasses, and I was like, what? Why this? Is it to make him look like he's so unintimidating as a person? Because like they want to make him look like an accountant or something, but he is like literally the most frightening man you'll ever meet. Because usually, and we always cover it in BatMinute, where it's like, well, most of the villains are always like a Black Mirror to Batman. So like, you know, the Joker is the opposite of Batman. Two-Face is what, you know, Bruce Wayne could have become, a big, you know, all this kind of thing. And the fact that like, yeah, they specifically like, Clarence Boddicker, you know, wears glasses is like, oh, so his view is also modified by technology, as it were. Like his own eyes
he's a cyborg, actually. Yeah,
it's kind of like he's almost the beginning. So he, in a way, is like, yeah, he's kind of like a human version of. But I was trying to see if I could make anything out of that, but it's like, well, is that what they're going for? It's like, yeah, these two have more, like, in terms of being the yin and yang to each other, have that in common already, or something. But
that is a really good perspective. In the commentary, they talk about that they really wanted Clarence to be seen as an intellectual. You know, he's not just a thug. He actually has plans and ideas, and he's smart. I mean, not smart. Well, okay, he's confident enough to murder cops, but it's more implied in the book that that's part of the OCP agenda than that what really comes up in the movie.
Except I became really fascinated by this novelization then, because it's like, well, they're like, oh, it gets into so much stuff. And it's written by like Ed Naha, who's like probably like acclaimed writer. So like, oh yeah, you did a really great job with like expanding on the material. I was trying to see if I could find one on eBay that's like 60 quid. And like, I do know a guy within the movie feminist community who can get you like PDFs of novelizations somehow. I don't know how he does it, but if you're ever like, I need the novelization of like the 1996 Jungle Book. He's like, no, give me a minute. And he'll come straight back to you with it. But
wow. How's about this for a segue? I do have the novelization in front of me, and there's actually a bit of text I really wanted to point out.
Oh.
This is probably more next minute, just if we want to track it by minute. This is what Murphy's going through his head when Clarence Boddicker, puts an end to his life. Clarence stepped forward and pulled a Desert Eagle 44 out of his belt, nonchalantly aiming the pistol at Murphy's head and squeezed off an easy round. Murphy felt the bullet burrow into his left temple. He felt part of his head dribble out in back. The air seemed cold above him. Now, Clarence slid the gun back into his belt. He didn't twirl it, TJ Laser style. Murphy would have smiled if he had control of his muscles. The gang leaguer definitely lacked class.
Yeah.
How the hell is that? Murphy's going through his head. That son of a bitch didn't twirl his fucking gun. I'm so disappointed.
I mean, all that should have been going through his head was a bullet. I'm amazed he can think at all.
It's the thing, like, at that point, you're like, Murphy, you really need to get your priorities straight, man. If you're so fixated on that goddamn twirling of the gun, like,
I do enjoy the novel.
Yeah, one of the reviews I read were saying like, yeah, it's made very apparent that Clarence is much more of a mercenary, and it's like it specifies he hates killing people unnecessarily. Like he'll only kill people if you pay him to do it. So the fact that he has to kill Murphy is like, oh, I'm not even getting paid for this. This is a waste of my time and a waste of this guy's life. But yeah, I guess I have to do it. And it's like, within the movie, you really just get more like, no, these guys are complete sadists. Like they well, you know, Clarence a bit, but then like the rest of the gang, like Joe in particular, it's like, yeah, these guys are really getting off on this. Like they're
scum.
They're just hyenas. They're having the best time.
I think that's why I made like, even to this day, if I see that the guy, what's his name? The guy plays Emil, Paul McCrane.
Yeah,
there's just something about him. It's just like, yeah, that guy. Like he's just. I just remember I remember him melting, which is going to traumatize you anyway. But it's just the fact that he's such an unrelenting asshole. Like he's completely unredeemable in any way in this movie. So it's just marked that guy's face for life.
Yeah, the guy plays Laura Palmer's dad in Twin Peaks.
Ray Wise.
I can't remember that actor.
Yeah,
Ray Wise. Yeah, we were just talking about him. I could not. Yeah. Yeah, like he always plays these absolute psychotic characters, so that's just my association with the guy now forever.
I think one thing we have, and I've had to hold back for like 2 seasons. Maybe I'll get into it with her this season, but One of our frequent guests on BatMinute is a director called Natasha Kamani. She made like things like Imitation Girl and things like this, but like she, proper feature filmmaker. And she made a movie with Ray Wise. And all I ever want, every time I'm talking to her, it's like, all I want to talk to you about is Ray Wise. I want to get all the gossip on this guy. But it's just like I can't. Like, I feel like I've only brought her in to talk about Ray Wise, so it's like I better leave it.
Yeah.
So now it's been 3 seasons. Maybe I can be like, okay, so you made a movie with one of the most legendary actors who's ever lived, of course. Yeah. So can you please talk about just that for the rest of the hour? But
so when we come up to the nightclub scene in our minutes, we're just gonna nudge you and say, "Can we?"
I can put you in. She's very, very good, and she's a real love of genre movie. I can almost guarantee if I said to Natasha, like, "Oh, would you want to be on a RoboCop minute?" She'll be like, "Yes," straight away. So,
which minute? Oh, the one when Leon kicks RoboCop in the nuts, which actually has the director's cameo as well.
Oh,
so might be pertinent.
Because he's only one of 3 Twin Peaks cameos. You got him, Miguel Ferrer, of course, Albert in Twin Peaks, and the old man he was in Twin Peaks in the 2nd season as well. So
yes.
Oh, yeah.
I was a big fan of Twin Peaks.
Everyone is in Twin Peaks.
So it was just like, it's as if though the casting agents were just like, I just saw RoboCop last night, and I was like, oh, give me that guy.
I just heard about Dano Hurley. I just heard about that recently on this show. What was it called? Oh yeah, BatMinute 89.
Yeah, there you
go. I started listening through the first episodes, and I was just like, holy shit! You talked about the old man. Yeah. It was destined to be.
I think we talk about in those episodes, but I do have old man blindness, where I'm like, oh yeah, him and Jack Palance were the same actor. And so many others, like any old guy is like any old crusty white guy in a business suit. It's like, yeah, it's the same actor every time. Isn't
they're all the same. Yeah. But Miguel Ferrer is so great, and I love his character in Twin Peaks. I mean, I love his character in this as well. It's just he's kind of always playing the same guy, but it's a great character. He's fun.
He was one like a few, like, every time celebrity dies, you're like, oh, that's a shame. But there's a few that actually like physically hit you. And Miguel Ferrer dying I was actually like, oh no, yes, because he had so much work left in him. Like he's a guy that didn't stop. He was always in stuff. He was always good. And it's like, yeah, he could have kept going for decades. But
he was in his 50s or something. Yeah,
it's quite.
He died young, relatively speaking, compared to like the old man.
That's just got that thing because it was just as Twin Peaks was returning, and it was just like the rest of the season you're just marked with like, yeah, there he is. This is the last we're ever going to see of Miguel Ferrer. And you're like, oh man, that's a real tragedy. But like. He didn't even get to go out like snorting coke off any prostitute's boobs or anything. Like,
yeah.
What? Unless he did, maybe that was his final wish. He's like, I know I'm going tomorrow.
Maybe that's how he did. Yeah.
So
he was 61.
Wow.
Also, that just makes like, he's crazy young in this though, because like in Twin Peaks, I always kind of got the vibe of like, he's a grown up. He's like a guy in his late 30s. But I guess in this, it's supposed to be he's the young upstart. But then there's only like 3 years difference between the two things, so it's like it's bizarre that he seemed to age to me. I guess maybe it's just the way he carried himself or whatever. But
this is kind of very tangential to RoboCop, but I see a bit of trivia here. Miguel O'Hara, the alter ego of Marvel Comics superhero Spider-Man 2099, was named after Ferrer by his friend and writer Peter David.
Hey.
That's another piece of writing royalty. Was he? No, he was
novelization royalty.
Yeah, I was going to say he was a novelizationist as well, but I know him as well from Star Trek novels. And...
Oh well, if people should listen to BatMinute forever, we talk about Peter David all the time because he did the novelization of Batman Forever, and it was one of those things where he got the script and he's like, let's see how I can fix this, and basically wrote his own version of the movie. Which
I will forever remember the scene where as Chase Meridian is saying all her stupid dialogue, and then in her head she's like, oh my god, I can't believe I said that. Oh, what is wrong with me? Oh, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that in a little podcast called The Book Was Better.
That we both used to do a million years ago. It's not available anymore, sadly.
Peter David is a man who essentially does try to save the character of Chase Meridian. Like it makes it very apparent, like that scene where like Batman shows up at her in her boudoir, and then she's like, no, there's someone else and stuff. And like within the movie you're watching, it's like, how does this woman not know that it's the same friggin' guy? And in the book, Peter David's like, yes, she's always known that it's Bruce Wayne, but she's toying with him, and she's guilt-ridden then because she's like, yes, I've been messing around with this guy. Like I've always known as Batman because I'm not an idiot, but I've also been toying with him.
Bruce Wayne smell like rubber.
But it turned her into something much more interesting because she was very much like, yes, I've been psychologically toying with him because I know I'm pitting these two identities against each other, essentially. So
because she's a psychologist, and her whole thing is like duality, and that movie's not great.
But, the thing is not great, but as we covered in that season, it could have been incredible. And our whole thing was like Chase Meridian should be the villain. She should have been. And there was a whole thing where apparently Joel Schumacher originally wanted.
Such a great name. You're just wasting it. Come on, give her something more to do.
But originally, Nicole Kidman was supposed to play Poison Ivy. Like Poison Ivy was going to be in the movie, and then it was very early on. Joel Schumacher's like, "Nah, too many things in the broth," basically, and changed it to Chase Meridian. But the whole way through, you're like, she's a little bit of Harley Quinn, and she's a little bit of Poison Ivy, and it's very much like this should be the villain of the movie. Should be.
I was just about to ask, is there because I'm just trying to remember when Harley Quinn actually debuted in the cartoon. It was got to be like season
92.
Yeah. She's like, there's very much. Like
I remember because she's the same age as me. And so is Bane, actually.
So I was actually curious. I was just thinking, well, was there actually a moment, because you'd be the expert to ask, was there a moment where they were going, why don't we just make this Harley Quinn? Or they saved that?
I know with when the abandoned Batman 5, Harley Quinn was going to feature. And it was always, and the rumor was that it was going to be Courtney Love or Madonna playing her.
Why?
Yeah, but I think at that stage, they were probably like, well, we're taking, because so much of the stuff from Batman Forever is just outright swiped from the animated series. But I think they probably were like, well, we've done the Joker. We can't really do Harley Quinn now, I guess. But what if Batman was seeing a psychiatrist? That's a Joker seeing a psychiatrist? What if Batman? I wouldn't be surprised. They never specified that, but I would be willing to bet it was like a thing of like, yeah, I got. But then psychiatry was a thing in the 90s with like ultra masculine characters getting psychoanalyzed because you had The Sopranos and then, friggin' analyze this and
Next
stuff
Generation.
Like that.
Well, shit. That's exactly what I was hoping to spare you from.
So I think it was just a thing in the air where it was like also because they had friggin' Silence of the Lambs and Frasier was on. I think people were just, the idea of psychology was just permeating the culture for whatever reason.
Yeah, it was really, because I was born in that era, so that's normal. But yeah, it was just psychologists were everywhere.
Yeah.
I just imagine Kelsey Grammer in a bat suit.
You know what?
I'd watch that.
He could make it work. Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer is got the setup to be like, this man has never played Hugo Strange, but he should, before he dies, for the love of God, even if it's just like a random cartoon show, cast this man as Hugo Strange at some point, because
hell yeah,
he's perfect for it. But tragically, not as yet.
Anyway, RoboCop. This is the scene. It walks that line between comedic and horrific. It is just so brutal, but it keeps going, and then there's this really fake screaming where it's It's like, you're not going to be screaming like that if you're shot. Like, you'll be more like like, what are you doing, Peter Weller? You're doing so well.
Well, I don't know. I've never been shot. They had to tone a lot of this down because people were getting too horrified at this scene.
Yeah, maybe.
This is the sanitized version.
Yeah, I could see it because Christopher Lee. I always think of Christopher Lee in that scene that was deleted from one of the Lord of the Rings sequels, where Peter Jackson says, "Oh," and then you get stabbed, and then you scream, and then Christopher Lee's like, "I wouldn't scream. Why not? Well, I know that people wouldn't do that if they were stabbed. All the air in your lungs would come out." And he's like, "Okay, I believe you. I think you know what you're talking about."
It wasn't have you ever heard someone being stabbed in the back, Peter? Like, no. Well, I have. It's just like, okay, well, I won't question that then.
As much as I wish to not argue with the Dark Overlord himself, I think there's a difference between someone being stabbed and someone being shot violently by shotguns. However, yes, the scream, it's a little...
It wouldn't be continuous like that, because every time he gets hit, you'd be like he can't help it. That's an autonomic response.
The idea that we were saying though, like, it kind of like almost makes it less harsh by having the screaming, because it becomes a little bit comical. I think that is very true, because the most disturbing part of this minute is when he gets his hand blown off and he's not saying anything. He's just like so in shock of the fact that his hands just exploded in front of his face. That's the bit I remember as being more traumatic than him actually getting shot, because at that point you can't even verbalize what he's feeling, because it's just so horrifying to see your own hand get completely obliterated in front of you.
Silence can be way more effective than screaming, I find. That reminds me of, there's another podcast called James Bonding. It was Matt Gawley, and they used to review all the James Bond movies. And when they got to the Brosnan era, they kept talking about how his hurt acting was too good, that it actually kind of made you cringe because he would go silent and you really felt that he was in pain, and so it kind of made it a little bit too real for a James Bond movie.
I don't think I'd go that far with that particular era, but I get. But interestingly enough, saying about the wind getting knocked out of you, I have done a bit of research into ballistics of shotguns versus Kevlar.
Oh.
Yeah, you're now on a list.
Yeah. I know writers. I do writings. I do look at weird shit, but yeah. And the sad thing is, there's a lot of YouTube videos showing what the impact of shotgun blasts on Kevlar is. And because I was curious on how real this scene was in regards to survivability, because Murphy's still alive after this barrage, and he's finally killed by Clarence. The funny thing is, okay, so there's two types of shotgun shells. There's commonly is buckshot, which is the pellets, and slugs. If this had been a slug shot barrage, Murphy would be toast. Literally, like that. After about 2-3 shots, that vest would be shredded. So, funny thing is, with the distance and the buckshot, most of that damage would have just gone into the vest. We don't know what vest technology is like 40 years in the future. Oh, sorry, 20 years at this point. But, yeah, so Murphy could have still survived, except for the final bullet. He would be in very much, like, needed medical evacuation, but he could have survived that shot. Because there's typically a metal plate behind the heart, or now I think it's even carbon fiber. That can absorb a lot of bullet. But, yeah, all those shots to Murphy's chest would have knocked the wind out of him in seconds. The impact alone from that distance would have just winded him, and but he could have survived. He would have lost an arm, he would have had bleeding problems, but scarily, he could have lived.
Amazing, because they do basically unload everything they got on him.
Well, if like let's say a 12-gauge shotgun has, I think it's like there's like 6 shots in them typically. So 4 people, 6 shots. That's a lot of bullets, a lot of buckshot. So when Murphy's vest is like shredded, that's what would happen.
Oh, interesting. So I wonder if they really thought about it. It was just, well, this is what we want to happen in the scene.
I think it was probably this is what we want to happen in the scene. I think I've overthought this more than they did.
Yeah, reality is just syncing up with fantasy, just as a coincidence.
They didn't talk about this in the commentary, so I can't confirm it. But that's just my own take on the research, just because I was curious as to what this would have been like in real life. And because Kevlar has some protection level, but it doesn't have a lot of protection level overall. If you get shot once with a Kevlar vest and you survive, you never touch that vest again. It's compromised. So a short amount of time, that thing's dead. Like after a while. So it's a survivability. Then bang, you can't survive a bullet to the head.
Yeah, he's not Wolverine.
No. Well, he also doesn't survive a bullet to the head in Logan, doesn't he?
Oh, that is true. That is true.
Yeah. I know, that's circumstances.
Have you guys talked about our RoboCop remake project?
Yeah.
Briefly, yes.
Yeah, because I love that. That was just an amazing bit of work. But like, I had to go check, like, what did they do for this scene? And it's like, this Murphy's death in that is all done through interpretive dance.
Yes, it's my favorite. I mean, I do love the stuff that the Cracked guys did, but the interpretive dance scene where it's just it's pure art. It is just it's hilarious, but also art.
Yeah, there's the fact they have initially the music starts and it's like a very morose version of the RoboCop theme, and then it's like him holding up his hand, and then this red felt coming out behind it, and then all of them in unison doing.
Did you end up watching that, Simon?
No, unfortunately, I got about a few minutes in, and I loved it, but then I was just like, I have to do something else, and that was like a month or so ago.
For shame. Well, get on it.
Back in the before times when you could just have people around your house whenever you wanted, like people, we used to stick it on regularly just for background because it was whenever you looked at the screen, something new and weird was happening. So it was perfect for like, everyone knows the movie. You don't have to pay attention to it, but you can just sort of laugh at these little weird things they're doing with like, oh yes, it's the Ed 209 is a giant puppet now, and the guy getting shot is like a Muppet with like stuffing flying out.
I always think of the RoboCop, the 2014 RoboCop that they have show up at the end, where he's just wearing the Halloween costume and he's rummaging through the garbage and he's just like, and they're like, get out of here, shoot, get out of here.
See, I remember before our RoboCop, there was a project. Was it like the Star Wars remake by Minute or something project? It was. Like This is like almost 20 odd years ago, and yeah, they got a whole lot of people to just remake the original Star Wars. I think it was just A New Hope, minute by minute, so someone could dedicate, and they could make it any way they want. Animation, live action.
Yeah, there's a Shrek one, and there is a Sonic the movie one.
Really? I didn't even know that one.
Yeah.
I only watched bits and pieces of that, but that was hilarious. That was amazing. I love that kind of project.
I think for BatMinute, maybe we should try to do this. This should be a thing. Me and John should say, like, yeah, we're going to commission everyone who wants to just do a minute of Batman 89 in your own style, and we'll just compile it as like, yes, BatMinute has now remade Batman minute by minute.
Yes.
No. Yes. Here's the thing: would you do Batman 89 or would you do Batman and Robin?
Well, that's the thing. Well, yeah, maybe after this season, it's like, oh, we have just covered it. Let's see, can we redeem it in some way by having people literally remake it? But
so there is one bit of cut dialogue. Just going back to an hour ago when we first started this long sprawling journey. It's about Clarence. There's an actually bit of edited dialogue in the original script. It says like, let's split. The place is going to be crawling with cops. So I think it's one of those things where the original scriptwriters felt like, yeah, that's the smart move. They have to assume the cops are going to be on their way. They had their fun, and then they've split.
But I also noticed in the original script, the "give the man a hand" isn't there. So I was wondering, is that a Kurtwood Smith improv? Or
it feels very in keeping with the general dialogue vibe of RoboCop's all snappy, sassy lines.
In the director's cut, you even have Emil stating out loud, "Hey, he's still alive." Like, that's something they cut out. That could be one of those things where maybe it was a bit too gruesome for like they're going, "Oh, look, he's still alive. Let's taunt him." But you also have Joe going, "Does it hurt?" And you're like, "Oh, you fucker."
I think that was a bit they cut out because obviously the infamous RoboCop TV edit with like, we called him butts and all that business. And I noticed that they did cut "Does It Hurt?" because I guess they were like, yeah, that's an extra little bit of sadism that you just don't need. Like, where it's so harsh that he's like mocking him in that fashion as well. Where it's like, yeah, the guy suffered enough just to have it be that he's got shot a bunch of times and they get out. Okay.
I don't think I've actually seen a TV cut of this because I've always seen like the R-rated version, which is slightly pared down from the director's cut. So yeah,
it's more. I just got a lot of it on YouTube because it's so infamous now that like, they edited down RoboCop for TV and they had to take out all the swearing and cut all the violence, and then like one of the the big scenes being like Dick Jones having this whole like, we used to call him Peckerhead and all this kind of stuff, and we used to call him sometimes we'd even call him a lot worse. Like, we can't even say asshole. Jesus Christ.
I love it when the TV edits have ADR overthink and it's clearly a different person's voice. It's like, some would call him Butthead. That kind of stuff. I love that.
That's exactly what it is, but it's just like, but yeah, the noting with this scene in particular, though, like, oh, how do you tone this down? And like one of the things was like, you got to take out him actually mocking him as he's dying because it's a bit too harsh.
Yeah, this minute in a TV edit is 10 seconds, maybe? Just like literally cut to ribbons, cut down like a Murphy. That was bad.
Just like literally just like you see them putting the guns up and it just cuts to Lewis going, "Murphy, oh no," or something. But it's like, oh, you get the idea, right?
Oh wow! The thing is, I can imagine that happening.
I saw recently on Comedy Central at about 1 PM. They showed Mars Attacks, and they cut it down. Like, they cut out everything with Sarah Jessica Parker on the dog's body, like when her head's replaced with, and all the stuff with Pierce Brosnan. and like all the weird stuff, every death was cut. You would just see the Martians put up a thing, and then it was implied that the person had died. So it was when Jack Nicholson got killed, it was bizarre because it was just like the Martian leader starts shaking his hand, and it just cuts to Jack Nicholson lying dead on the floor. And it's like, if you can't show it at this time of the day uncut, and you have to edit to where it just literally makes no sense, just don't show it at this time of day. Like it's clearly not appropriate for this time of day, so therefore don't show it. Save it for prime time or whatever. But it was infuriating.
Mars Attacks is not even that gruesome. It's cartoony.
Yeah.
It's so goofy. I love it. It's terrible and goofy, and I love it.
Yeah, I saw it as a kid. Didn't even occur to me.
Yeah, but it's just like too many red and green skeletons. It's like, no, gotta get rid of all those. And like when the Martians come in and they just like eradicate all of Congress in one shot, that's cut. It was just like, it was literally it was about 40 minutes long. Like it was literally, they had to cut out everything.
Well, let's face it, the plot of Mars Attacks is only about 40 minutes long.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's literally just like Martians come and take over the Earth, and then makes their head explode. That's it. That's the end of it.
I forgot that Jack Nicholson plays 2 different roles in that film, and nobody mentions it.
Apparently, he wanted to play every character. His original pitch is like, I'll play every single person in this movie.
Amazing.
I want to watch that cut.
Like a being John Malkovich of Jack Nicholson movies.
Oh,
Jack Nicholson is Natalie Portman in Mars Attacks. Is Pam Grier in Mars Attacks. Jack Nicholson is friggin' Danny DeVito in Mars Attacks. Like, yeah, by all means, keep them. Jack Nicholson plays Tom Jones in this movie.
We have the technology. We could just get Jack to do the voiceover and then deep fake the rest of the film.
Yes. Yes.
We can do this. It's so many. Okay, I don't know if you know this, Niall, but I'm actually doing Kung Pao Enter the Minute, so I'm dealing with things like digital head replacement on a movie, and so it's like, it's crazy how like 20 years ago we had this technology, and like we do it for dumb things like Kung Pao, but at the same time, like deep faking is such a big thing now. I would love to see a deep faked recut of Mars Attacks with Jack Nicholson being everyone. That would be amazing.
It's like, if you ever wanted to see Jack Black, but he's played by Jack Nicholson, like, I have to. Now I do.
Yeah. So, are we going to jump over to Gaslighting Robocop?
I do have some commentary, which is actually pretty relevant.
Okay.
In this minute, Paul Verhoeven talks about his theory that, I'll quote, Robocop somehow was an American replacement of Jesus. Even alludes to the later walking on water scene as meaning in the sense of, I'll quote, I'm not going to arrest you anymore. I'm just going to kill you, which says a lot about American Christianity. So I can't fault him.
I did think it was strange in this scene that they managed to resist the temptation to have Murphy doing a Christ pose. Like, it's kind of
yes.
But it's like other filmmakers would have been like the knees together, arms spread wide, and just have the head.
You mean Zack Snyder?
Exactly. Yes, Zack Snyder would be like, in case you didn't get it.
Yeah, Lewis would have picked up Murphy's body and cradled him like the other infamous Christ pose. But he does.
It took 3 days for him to be resurrected as RoboCop or something like that.
Yeah, there is a weird time dilation. It's about 3 months, roughly. So 3 months, 3 days. So yeah, there's a lot of Christ imagery because that's just Verhoeven to a T. Ennio compares Lewis to Mary witnessing the death of Christ. So yeah. And Verhoeven actually specifies that the separation of Lewis, even though it was in the script, but like the physicality of the separation of Lewis and Murphy in this minute, or in this scene, was actually due to locations as well. They shot a lot of the Lewis stuff in Pittsburgh, but all the Murphy stuff was in Long Beach. So they only got her into essentially that one scene. So all the stuff where Lewis is looking onto Murphy, completely different location.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Lewis didn't technically witness all that.
She's just pretending.
Lewis, to be fair to her, I guess we don't, know. They'll get into her psychology too much, but like,
no.
I think you would really need counseling after seeing this. Not just the fact of seeing like, oh yeah, how violent the incident is, but it's more so the fact that it's like, that was so close to being me. Like, She got off real easy with this. Is like considering these guys.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about that more in the next minute. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we can save it till then, of course. So
we've put off the inevitable. Let's talk about the gaslighting of RoboCop.
Alex, how do you feel?
I feel fine, Dr. Norton.
This minute begins with Tom Pope trying to pronounce cerebral ataxia and ends with Murphy's son saying, "Hi, Dad." So, yeah.
I actually have 2 notes here because I was only going to keep this as my 1 note, which is just Sergeant Jack Freeman with the American flag.
Even the name, like, he's just so American. It's just beef, hard cheese.
Oh, I'm surprised it wasn't a fucking eagle squawking. How's that happened?
Yeah. Was it blast hard cheese? That's what it is from Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, like the
Bushman
scientist,
beef.
she says like, "Oh, I get his appeal." And she's like, "Do you want a hot RoboCop? Is that what you're saying?" Like,
is she thirsty for him? Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, she was thirsty for the RoboCop.
For that RoboCop.
But then Peter Weller said home was like, "Oh, what am I, chopped liver? Come on!" Like,
But I also had another note, which is they're looking for the least emotional candidate, so they chose the most bland character.
I know, I made the same joke. I'm like, they went for the most wooden man of all, that he doesn't, not even a chance of having a feeling.
my exact note here for it is emotionally balanced equals dull as hell. So
Yes, exactly.
It's nice to know we're all on the same page here.
I can't believe they took a film that was so fundamentally like, it's, you know, RoboCop's so many things, but it's like, it's horrific, it's funny, it's fun, it's like a good time, but it's also very thought-provoking and cerebral, and it just managed to make the dullest movie possible out of that.
It's so bland. It's just nothing. It doesn't even have a pulse. We've been trying to detect it for a while. If we haven't found it,
Like, not even the periodic, like, you know, stepping in of Samuel L. Jackson is enough to look at that cast list. It's like, that is one of the greatest casts in decades. How have they messed this up so bad? And even like Michael Keaton can't save it. Like, it's baffling how this went so badly wrong. Like,
I think Keaton was at least having fun. Like, he
does seem like he's having fun.
Yeah. He's just there going, I don't fucking care. I'm just going to be me. Love that man. So good.
Even like, you know, Gary Oldman there though. It's just like I did pretty much no research on the RoboCop remake, but
oh no, that's fine. It's unexpected.
But I was almost curious enough to look up the script, because considering how many funny lines are in the original movie, there were 2 funny lines in the remake. Both of them were from Michael K. Williams, and I'm certain he improvised them. Like, it was just like, he's here, he's like, "Yep, all right, I'm gonna make a joke about this," and they're just like, "Oh, that was." People smiled at that line, Michael. Like, I guess we'll keep that in the movie because it's the only funny thing we got going on this godforsaken hump of a project here. And it's like,
I don't know what happened. I can't, because this is supposed to have the same writers, although apparently there was a script revision by a different writer that might have been brought in by the director, but I can't find it. I found one positive review of the movie. And it was less a positive review of the movie, but more of a, stop harassing the director. He made a good film. I'm like, going, no, he didn't.
He did a job. It wasn't a good job, but he did a job.
He made a movie, and that's more than what we can say.
He sure did.
He sure did a movie.
Sure did.
I think like Kevin Smith or someone says, like, yeah, that's the when like, viewing a film that you think is bad, it's like, you always know it's bad when someone says like, well, you know, it's lit very well. It's because like nice about it. So they're like, yeah, I mean, the lighting was pretty good. It's like, that's it.
I actually have in recent minutes bitched about the lighting. So
well, they can't even say that now. Jesus Christ.
Oh god, the cinematography of the house scene, it's so brown.
Beige.
Are you sure this wasn't shot in the 70s?
Yeah. At least you'd have a bit more mustard in there.
I'm certain that Joel Kinnaman is a good actor, but I've yet to see him in anything that he's been good at. Like, it's.
Have you watched Altered Carbon?
I have not seen Altered Carbon, actually. Maybe that's where I need to go next.
That's, I think, one of his best performances, because it is that kind of decade more like that noirish kind of persona, and I think that really works for him. And he brings something to it that Anthony Mackie, who comes in the second season, just doesn't.
Let's be fair to Joel Kinnaman. He has got a movie coming out. It's the sequel to Suicide Squad called The Suicide Squad, but it's directed by James Gunn. So even if Joel Kinnaman is as blank as, well, Joel Kinnaman, it'll at least be a fun film.
Yeah. Well,
if he can't make it work, I don't know who can.
Pretty much every time Joel Kinnaman gets a script, he just opens it up and it's just a picture of white bread, and he's just
yes.
He's like, I understand.
Yeah. I'll play Rick Flag again. I see.
Oh.
They didn't even make separate Funkos for different Joel Kinnaman characters. They really just put the same one out and changed the costume and hope no one will notice.
Oh no, I don't want to know. I'm just thinking, is there a Funko Pop of RoboCop, like the reboot one? There has to be.
Yeah, I'll probably. Oh, no, there is. I have seen it. Yeah.
Oh no, they truly are scraping the bottom of the barrel.
They
haven't done Funko Pops of Kung Pao yet, so no, they haven't. I love that film, by the way. It's fun to take the piss out of.
Of course. Well, you're doing the movies by minute on this, so I hope so.
I know they're apparently they're on the way. The Funkos of Frasier. It's like finally, this is my time.
Yes, yes. I hope they give Frasier a big old forehead.
I have entirely too many of these things already, but I'll definitely be for the Frasier ones.
I keep telling myself, nah, I'm too good for Funkos. Nah, I don't want them, and I've got like 5. So
I've got about a dozen.
I think I've currently got in front of me. I've got my Tower of Batman stuff. So it's a big stack of comics, and on top of that is a bat signal, and it's surrounded by Funkos from the movies and stuff. And they're all gifts. They're all gifts to me. So it's like, yeah, well, if people are buying them for me, of course I'll display them and stuff. And yeah, and I'm just like, I've got, beyond that, I've got about 9 of them then behind me. Again, all gifts. So it's just like, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, fair enough. If people want to buy me Howard the Duck as a Funko, I will gladly accept that.
So I cosplay as Endgame Thor for charity. So I had to get the Endgame Thor with Stormbreaker Mjolnir Funko Pop, but I got gifted Bro Thor for my charity group's Secret Santa. So it's just like I got these 2 pop vitals, like, you know, to appreciate my best, you got to appreciate me at my worst kind of thing going on.
All right, so should we close out this minute?
Yeah, I think that's it. So I would like to thank our guest, Niall, for joining us. And please give us your advertisements. Where can the lovely viewers find you?
Well, yeah, I'm one of the hosts of BatMinute, which is a show where we look at all the Batman movies 1 minute at a time. We've got, as mentioned earlier, unless you cut it out, 3 seasons completed at the moment, and we're gearing up to cover Batman and Robin. That's available on all good podcatchers. It's on YouTube. It's on it's here, there, and everywhere. We also have the BatMinute Listeners Cave on Facebook, where people come in and you can just talk about anything tangentially related to Batman. So if you got any news about like a friggin', you know, Robert Wool was in something, there you go, we can talk about it here. Or, you know, Joel Schumacher's, we talked a lot about Joel Schumacher's sex life in the last movie, to be honest, because
yes.
But all that kind of stuff, yeah, it's a free-for-all in that society. So
so I have to ask the question, why didn't you just call it a battalion?
That because we didn't think of it, Simon. Okay.
It's taking you this long?
That's actually pretty good.
So that's the battalion. You can cut out the rest of everything. That
battalion.
It's always been that, and it always will be.
You're gonna have a very awkward conversation with your co-host. This
gonna have
dumbass
rebrand.
I'm sorry. Go on.
But no, that's about it. That's all. We're on Twitter at the BatMinute. We're on Instagram at the BatMinute. Yada yada yada. Yeah, you know, if you Google BatMinute, we'll pop up straight away. So, yeah, by all means, we got all that. We got a bunch of hiatus. Suppose we actually talked. We did an episode all about Mars Attacks at one point. We did episodes all about all the Prince movies. We done episodes about what we did the Island of Dr. Moreau. We just did that and stuff. So yeah, we did all kinds of.
You should do one on the Lost Boys. We're always talking about Joel Schumacher.
There's so much.
Great film.
It's literally like we're tempted to almost cover literally every Jim Carrey movie because there's something to talk about. Like even after that too, we're just like we have to hold on because like we want to cover Joel Schumacher's Phantom of the Opera, but it's like we can't do too much Joel Schumacher material straight off, so you have to let it spread out. So maybe for like Halloween, we might do Phantom of the Opera or something. But
if you do a Lost Boys minute, everyone's going to be wanting to get the co-host spot for the guy with the saxophone minute.
Oh yes, okay. We reached out to that guy to be on Batman Forever. It's shocking he did not reply, but we'll try him again for this. Why not?
So you can find me on traviandesigns.com, TRAVAAN. On patreon.com/TravianDesigns. There is Legacy Minute and Blade Runner 2049. I just started that. Been reading all this really heavy academic literature about Blade Runner. I am frankly intimidated. And then there's my YouTube channel, just Courtney Colson, where I just talk about my life being a female to male to female detransitioner, getting way too TMI. I have no sense of privacy. I am the gender-flipped version of Kevin Smith.
Jesus. Oh, they're going.
Wait, no, hang on. Flipped version of Kevin Smith. Yeah.
And I'm just there going, I have the girth of Kevin Smith, at least probably at his prime, but I'm not quite the filmmaker of Kevin Smith. But you can find me on Fandom Crossing. Google's those YouTubes. I do Kung Pao Into the Minute. And, more importantly, please like, share, subscribe on this and all the other things that have definitely been mentioned previously. Once again, thank you, Niall.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, check us out on Spotify, Simplecast, Apple, Google's, YouTube's, all that lovely stuff. And until next time,
Robocock.